Howdy dorks. Saturday afternoon, 4:45, and I am done with my regional final football weekend. Decided instead of doing three separate ones, we'll just do quick hitters on all three of the games that I was at this weekend. So we'll go ahead and start off with 2A Division 1, Shiner and Refugio. That first off was a bucket list game for me to be able to cover. I always wanted to do that in the regional final round, and it was, the game itself was a little rough, but the crowd was unbelievable. I mean, that stadium holds 10,729 people for a 2A game, and it was packed. I mean, line in the side, it was amazing. The game itself, my goodness, Shiner. What they did to Refugio, who is the number 2 team in 2A Division 1, was just unspeakable. I mean, I walked away from that game with a final score of 55-14. I walked away from that game the same way that I walked away from the Lake Travis Westlake game in the last week of the regular season, of going, I don't think if they play to this caliber, like they do every week, that there's anyone in the state of Texas that can stop this team. And I mean, Shiner just really put it on them. Doug and Dalton Brooks rushed for a combined over 500 yards, 8 touchdowns. It was absolutely insane. Dalton Brooks is the junior, the younger brother. He had 6 touchdowns, and I mean, they weren't going 2-yard punch-ins. The first 2 were, and then after that, it was 71 yards. It was 83 yards. I mean, they put on an absolute clinic, and it was incredibly impressive. They've got their next game coming up next Thursday at 7 against Timpson at Tomball ISD Stadium, which is actually where I'm sitting in the parking lot right now. So, Shiner, unbelievable performance. Excited to see them take on the Timpson Bears next week. Up next, last night I was at North Shore Atascocita, so from a massive 2A Division 1 game to a massive name brand 6A Division 1 game between 2 contenders that everyone in the state knows. That's one of those matchups when you hear those 2 are going up against each other, it draws in some attention. And North Shore pulling out the win 44-20 on that one. And I walked away really impressed from North Shore. Specifically with their freshman quarterback. Caleb Bailey is 14-15 years old, and that kid can sling it. I mean, I talked to John Kay about him earlier this week, and I was like, man, you're rolling with the freshmen, and they were like, that's what we feel like has been working the best, and really seeing it. And it didn't take any time into that game for me to realize exactly what Coach K and his squad sees from that kid. I mean, he made a couple freshman mistakes, but obviously North Shore, a well-rounded enough of a team to be able to pull out the victory there. They just really kind of had Atascocita's number all night, specifically at the line of scrimmage. Their defensive line did a fantastic job of getting into the backfield. Atascocita was playing with a sophomore quarterback after obviously Gavin Sessions has been out for a length of time there after tearing his ACL. But they did what they needed to. They had the defensive ends rushing off the edge to be able to get there in the backfield, and Atascocita for many points in the game, especially in the first half, couldn't get it past midfield. Then in the second half, they really did. They started to make it a game. You saw some life come from the Eagles, and it almost got interesting there. And then the North Shore defense came up big, and that's that. It was what it was at that point. North Shore advancing to the state semifinals, and then we rounded out the Houston weekend where I'm sitting right now, Tomball ISD Stadium, in a 6A Division 2 Region 2 matchup between the Tomball Cougars and the Bridgeland Bears. And let's take a step back here. Tomball was the 4th seed in their district. In fact, on November 5th, in the final game of the regular season, they went up against Klein, won 35-14, and that's the only way that they made it into the playoffs. So they weren't just a 4 seed. They were fighting until literally the last game of the regular season to even get an opportunity to make it into the playoffs. And then, since then, I mean, it has been Tomball and the Cale Helms show. Cale Helms, their senior quarterback, I don't know what he figured out, but man, he figured it out. That kid is insanely impressive. I mean, he single-handedly basically took down Rockwall Heath last week, and tonight he did it again. But what was interesting, the final score being 48-13 over Bridgeland. Let's throw it out there in the obvious. Bridgeland was not playing with Connor Wegman, so he was out with injury. It was a concussion that he received last week, and he wasn't cleared to be able to come back. So a heartbreak to see such a great high school football quarterback not be able to play his last game. But regardless, they put in senior Josh Stevens, and they couldn't get anything going for Bridgeland. Now, I will say, at the halftime, it was a 14-0 game in favor of Tomball, so a real slow burn. Then Bridgeland came out and they put 7 on the board, so we're thinking, okay, maybe a little bit more game on here. They came out really hyped in the second half, and then holy third quarter, 2 minutes and 44 seconds was when the first fumble on a kickoff happened. Bridgeland fumbled it, and it was recovered by Tomball. They go down, they score. Then they do it again. They force another fumble. They score. After one play, it was a 42-yard passing touchdown. They go to kick off from that. Bridgeland fumbles again. Tomball recovers. One play later, a 31-yard touchdown, this time from Helms in the air. And at that point, we were like, oh my goodness, in the span of 2 minutes or 3 minutes off the game clock, it was church. It was over at that point. And so, yeah, an unfortunate loss there for Bridgeland. You feel bad for him missing Wegman, but don't get it confused. I mean, the defense played out of their minds for Tomball, which was really our biggest question. Was, okay, we know how good Kel Helms is. We know he can single-handedly take over the game, but can they get enough stops this late in the playoff to be able to keep him going? And I talked to Coach after the game, and, you know, he has a huge smile on his face, and the crowd was awesome, and it was one of those things. A lot of people say that there are too many teams in the Texas high school football playoffs. Well, a 4th seed in 6A Division II is one of the last 4 teams playing in their classification out of the entire state of Texas with all the momentum in the world. So it's great. It's a wonderful story. And Cale Helms said, you can't call us a Cinderella team at this point. We keep doing it week after week, and with just a profound victory like today, I think he's exactly right. Everyone's going to focus on Cinderella stories, but they're out there to prove, hey, we're going to see you at AT&T Stadium. So they'll have another big matchup next week in the state semifinals going up against either Geyer or Prosper. I didn't have any cell service, so I don't know who won that game just yet or if it's even over. But yeah, they're ready for whoever's up next. So there we go. A long, about 7 minutes there of recapping 3 great games in the Houston area. I'm headed back to DFW, and then, yeah, we'll break it all down for you on Monday from all across the state. Bye, guys.